Hi, it's Summer, and today I have some queer book recommendations for you. Since it's Pride Month, I wanted to talk about some of my favorite books with queer characters in them. I feel like a lot of these books are really popular and well known already, but hopefully there are a couple in here that are new to you that you can pick up this month. I wanted to start this list out with two books that are kind of more like honorable mentions because I did like them when I read them, but they're not like my favorites like some of these books are. The first one is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I read this finally in May for the first time after hearing about it for years and years. This one is especially popular because of TikTok and stuff, and I rated this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I bumped it up to a 4 on Goodreads. This is a mythology retelling following Achilles and Patroclus, and I don't think that I've read the original story that this book is based off of, but there's enough like foreshadowing and things happening that you like know really clearly how the book is going to end. And I think that that kind of ruined it for me a little bit, but I absolutely loved the romance and the writing was beautiful. Even though this wasn't like my all-time favorite book or anything, I still really recommend it. My next recommendation is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. This is a super unique and beautifully written sci-fi fantasy, and I'm pretty sure that it's like a shorter book. Yeah, it's only 209 pages. I listened to this book on audio, and I think that that might have been what made me rate it a little bit lower. This one for me was also 3.5 out of 5 stars. It got like a tiny bit confusing for me, and also the ending just like wasn't my favorite. But this is a book that I like wanted to love so badly because it's just such a cool story. It's basically about these two time travel agents, and each of these time travel companies that they work for are trying to fight for a different future outcome, and so they send these agents back in time to try to sabotage the other's plans to make a certain outcome for Earth come to pass. But as these agents are like going back in time and trying to trip the other one up, they start to like leave taunting messages for each other, and those messages eventually turn into kind of like a pen pal romance type thing. The way that they leave these messages behind though are super creative and not like a traditional like just writing on pen and paper kind of a thing. I think one of the messages that they described and wrote out was it was written in like the rings of a tree stump. Just like a super unique idea, super unique storytelling. And even though it wasn't one of my favorites, I think it has the potential to be somebody else's, so I wanted to put it on this list. My next book is Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. This is about Simon, who's in high school and he's not out yet, and he's been having this like online relationship with this person named Blue, but one of his classmates ends up finding out about it and starts to blackmail him. I actually think that I read this book in one sitting. It was just like a really fun, quick and easy read, and it was just such a cute romance, and I definitely recommend it. This next book was one of my favorite books of 2020, and it's honestly probably just like one of my favorite books ever, and it's Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Negan. This fantasy world is just beautiful to read about, and the author describes it so well that it's really easy to visualize everything. There's a lot of Asian influence in the story, and the like society is kind of based around this like caste system. So the first caste is called paper caste, and those are people that are just humans. And then there's steel caste, which are humans, but they also have some kind of like demon animal attributes, like you could be a person with cat ears kind of a thing. And then the third, moon caste, is described as fully demon with whole animal demon features such as horns, wings, or fur on a humanoid form, and complete demon capabilities. In this world, humans are not treated very well, and then the king is a moon caste or a demon, and he's a terrible guy. And I forgot how often he does it, but every however many years he takes in paper girls. I think it's something like 10 or more human girls he takes in, and they call them paper girls, and they're basically just there to do whatever the king wants. So this book obviously gets into like some pretty terrible like sexual assault kind of things, and it's a hard book to read because of that, and it just has a lot of like really sad things that happen in it, but it's also just like one of my favorite books with one of my favorite romances in it. Like, I love this relationship in this book. I have the second book and I still haven't read it. I really need to. I've kind of heard mixed things about the second book though, so I'm kind of nervous because I loved this one so much. But if you're looking for a beautiful, unique fantasy setting with a lesbian romance, this is definitely your book. I couldn't not recommend my favorite book, The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This follows Zachary, who's a university student, and one day when he's in the library, he finds a book that has all these like really cool stories in it, but alongside those stories is like a scene and a moment from his own life written within the pages. And so he's like trying to find out what this book is and why it has something from his own life in it. So he follows some of the clues that are on the cover of the book, a bee, a key, and a sword, and it like unravels this whole entire world of the Starless Sea. Alongside Zachary's story, you're also hearing these other stories of other characters that have to do with the Starless Sea. And I really loved those perspectives just as much as Zachary's, which was really great because I feel like with dual perspective stories, if you don't like one of them, it kind of like ruins the pacing of the book. But I was entertained from start to finish with this. This is definitely more fantasy than romance, so the relationship isn't like the #1 thing in this book, but it is one of the things that I really liked about it. Next, I'm recommending a series, and that is the Wayward Children series by Sean McGuire. This is the first book, Every Heart a Doorway. I feel like these books are pretty popular on BookTube. They're also very polarizing. I know a lot of people love them and a lot of people hate them. This series is literally 50-50 for me because there are 6 books out right now. It's still ongoing, but out of the 6 books, I only really like 3 of them. I like the first, second, and 4th books. The 4th book is my favorite in the series though. This is the one where they go to the goblin market, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself though. This is a fantasy series and it's following kids that have gone to magical worlds and then come back to our world reality, and they're having a hard time coping with being back in a place that they don't really belong anymore. So in the first book, we follow a group of those kids at this place called Eleanor's Home for Wayward Children, where it's like a school and a place where these kids can go to feel safe and kind of like work through their grief of being back in this world. It's run by people that have also gone to other worlds and come back. And then the next books in the series are following characters from that school and also new characters. The first book also has kind of like a dark plot to it where it's kind of like a murder mystery, and that was really fun. I'm also just a huge fan of Sean McGuire's writing. I think it's really beautiful, but these books are great if you want like short fantasy that has really great queer representation in it. This next one is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one is also very popular. This book is set in the golden age of Hollywood and follows an actress named Evelyn Hugo, and the story kind of just tells her life and of her many husbands that she had, and also just her romance that was kind of kept out of the public eye. I mainly really loved the setting, and I loved hearing about Evelyn's life. Even though she's a very gray character, I did feel like that made her a little bit more of like a real character to me. She like definitely wasn't a perfect person. I really loved hearing about like her life as an actress and hearing about all of like the movies that she was in, and I had to keep stopping myself from Googling her because I felt like she was a real person that I was reading about. I really hope that we get to see this as a movie or like a TV show in the future. I feel like most people have already read this if they've wanted to because it is pretty popular, but I recommend this one if you haven't read it already. I also couldn't make this video without mentioning Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I just can't stop talking about this book because I love it so much. This is a graphic novel series set in high school, and it follows Nick and Charlie and their romance. It is just the most cute, wholesome thing you will ever read. There are 4 volumes out right now. Volume 5, I think, is being released later this year. But this is just like such an easy, quick read because it is a graphic novel. You can read all 4 volumes in one sitting if you wanted to. I just loved the romance and I loved the friendships, and this book has so much awesome queer representation. This next one is Autobiography by Christina Lauren. I feel like I'm kind of biased towards this book because I just like related to so much in it. It's set in Provo, Utah, which is actually where I grew up, so all of the places that are mentioned in this book like I have been to. The main character's best friend is named Autumn, which I thought was so weird because I also have a season name and I'm from Provo. This follows Tanner, who falls for his classmate Sebastian, but Sebastian is a devout Mormon, so Tanner's pretty sure that he's not going to reciprocate those feelings. It's just a really sweet coming of age romance, and it's kind of like a little bit of like forbidden love just because of the like religious themes throughout this book. I loved the commentary that it had on being gay in a religious community, and I really just loved just the sweet little romance that happens in this. I don't know if this book is for everybody, but it's one that I really enjoyed. This last one is one of my all-time favorite books, and that's Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This is basically a Draco Harry fan fiction, but I promise it doesn't feel like you're just rereading Harry Potter. It's its own story. This follows Simon and Baz, who are at a magical boarding school. Simon is described as the worst chosen one ever. He doesn't really have good control over his powers, and his roommate is like his sworn enemy named Baz, who's a vampire. So it's enemies to lovers, which is just the best, and I love Simon and Baz together so much. This book is a series now, but I definitely recommend only reading the first book and just pretending that it's a standalone. These were all of my Pride Month book recommendations. Please let me know in the comments some of your favorite queer books because I definitely need more on my TBR. Thank you so much for watching though, and I will see you in the next one.